Alright, I got this cabinet top here glued up a while back, but I didn't have a way to cut it off and trim it off, so finally went out and I found another saw. I found this 15 amp Porter cable with a magnesium shoe on sale at Lowe's for, it was marked down to $41, I think it was, and it really seemed like a good deal, and it does have a really nice flat magnesium base to it. The rest of the saw is basically plastic, it looks like, but I also picked up a blade on sale at Home Depot there, a 40 tooth, to get a little bit better cut than the one that actually came on the saw. So the saw seemed to be a good deal, and they had a bunch of clearance stuff at Lowe's now, so it's a good time to go shopping. Came with the little Allen key, fits right in that little holder on the power cord there, so it's always going to be accessible, and real simple matter to change the blade out. The saw itself, I think pretty much all the guards, the saw, and everything else is actually plastic, but it still does seem pretty sturdily made. And I set the indicator at 0 to stop and checked it with a square, and actually it turned out to be perfect, so it looks like it should cut square and stuff. And that bottom is really nice and flat, and it's a nice stiff piece. I don't know what would happen if you drop it, but I figure for the price, if it lasts me a couple of years, it's really well worth it. So I just clamped a piece of straight edge plywood on that slab to go back and just give it a try trimming it. Now this top is about 2 1/8 inches thick, so it's just about at the limit for the saw, but you can pretty much see the saw has plenty of power, and it just cut through it like basically nothing. So I got the extension cord hung up there, and it really feels nicely balanced and everything else. You can see it did do a real nice job at cutting there. Nice smooth cut with that blade, and it turned out to be a perfectly straight and square cut, so it looks like the saw is going to work out good for what I need it for. So I just, flipped it around and decided to go back and trim off the other side to the final dimension before I stack this upstairs to get accustomed to the humidity and stuff by the wood stove before I use it. So in the end, it looks like it's a fairly decent saw, and it was really a good price on it, I think. And there you can see the blade, that 40 tooth blade actually did a decent job too. It does come with a 3-year warranty, but it says you only get 1 year free service. That doesn't really make much sense. So now it's on to the dust collection system and starting to pull stuff out. And you can see I got that new sander in there, and I got a kludge of dust lines that all kind of accumulate down by the floor there and run tapered along the floor and stuff. And what I'm going to do is I've decided I ordered one of those new Grizzly Growler Cyclone collectors to put in front of my dust collector. I know that this 4-inch pipe that I've been using for years is really undersized for the dust collection, but all my machines have 4-inch ports on them and stuff, so it really doesn't make sense to go with a 6-inch line without having to redo everything and spend a fortune. So, as it is now, this really does work for me, so I'm just going to make some modifications to the system to try to get the Cyclone in front of my dust collector. There you can see I had some shelf standards there, and I had some of those bookends for the shelf that snap in, and they really do make a good hanger for dowels and levels and stuff like that. So I got the pipes cut down. I started, cutting things down, and decided I was going to mount the dust collector on the wall to get it up as high as I could. And I had a couple of 2x3s laying around I had purchased. Now you can see this dust collector actually has a 2 horsepower motor on it, but it does have a 1700 CFM capacity at a 14-inch static pressure with a 12-inch impeller. So that really is much better than the newer ones that you're selling now that are rated at the 2 horsepower. So it does get the job done, and it will pull 2 4-inch pipes. So now it's time to just make up a structure to hang that blower motor on the wall to get it up in the air a little bit, so it'll be closer to the inlet of the Cyclone. And I just made up some brackets to mount on the this down here is a piece of pressure treated 2x4 with some 2x3s screwed onto it to be. I'm using construction adhesive to glue that down to the floor. And then these 3 2x3s are uprights, and they actually slip up behind the floor joist up above when it goes in place there, and everything gets kind of screwed together and glued down. So I figured I didn't want to, go through the insulation and drill the concrete block wall, so this was the easiest way for me. And I got the 2x3s in place, and then I took some 1/2-inch plywood with construction adhesive and layered that up. This is the first layer of it. I put a couple screws in there, and then I took another 1/2-inch layer and put on top of that with construction adhesive, and put some longer screws through everything to hold it all together, and hopefully be strong enough to support the blower and keep the vibration down a little bit, because it's got a little bit of a flex to it. So now it's time to take this dust collector apart. I just cleaned this about 2 weeks ago, and here it is already. Just been through a couple bags of chips, and you can see that even with that flapper in there, the bottom edge of it's still really full of a lot of debris and stuff. So that's what I'm really trying to get rid of here, just to keep the flow up on the dust collector. So I started by disassembling the collector itself. There's that big long elbow that comes up and holds that cyclone piece in the middle there, and I decided to get rid of that, and I decided I was going to mount the blower on the wall. I kept the blower horizontal because this model here, you're not supposed to mount the motor in a vertical position over the cyclone like some people do. From what I understand, it can shorten the motor life on this, and it's already 12 years old and has a lot of use on it, so I figured I'd take every precaution I could. And by getting this up this high, I just need a short piece of 6-inch flex hose over to the cyclone, so that should help with the air movement. Now I decided I was going to just use that same ring on there, and I had to bolt them back to back. I had to take the 3 holes on either side and drill them out so the tapped holes were actually clearance for the bolts to go through. And I left that one in the center on the top and the bottom so the bolts could come in the other way, and there was more room for a wrench to tighten them. So it fit together nice using the same gasket and everything that it came apart with, and I figured this to be the highest I could get it without having that filter touch the ceiling in my basement. So it took a couple minutes to just bolt that all together there, and then I put it all back together. And there's this one brace that used to go down to the bottom that I just had to bend a little bit and run up to the top there, and I'll put a board up there to mount it to shortly. And this bottom bag is going to be cut down to be a couple inches long once I get the cyclone in place, so I can place another tool underneath it. So pretty much there it is. I turned it on, and the first thing I noticed is there's a lot more noise coming out of it. Moving that one piece of pipe really did up the airflow through it, and you can kind of see, well, you'll see in a little while how the cyclonic action in the bottom there really makes a difference without that elbow in there. And there's that brace in place now, and those are the extra pieces that I don't need anymore. So I did a couple other changes too. My joiner used to be on an angle there and stuff, and I wound up actually turning it and pulling it back about 3 feet towards the bench, because I used to have a 10-foot hose going to the joiner input there, and by moving it back I was able to get that down to 5 foot and cut that in half. And I'm actually cleaning up on the other end of the bench there for a new router table someday. So I decided to just start playing around with it and see if it made a difference on the dust collection, because it seemed to be a lot more flow. And over at the bandsaw, I'm cutting up a bunch of pieces of, they're live edge pieces. I'm taking the live edges off to use to finish up that next project. So I'm just kind of preparing them all, and I had like a couple 100 feet of this to cut up, so I went through and cut it up. And you can see there's some dust on the table of the bandsaw there, but basically the upper and lower cabinets are completely clear. So I think I have to put a couple more holes in that throat plate to get it to pull a little more dust off the table, but nothing really went in the air, so I'm real happy about that. And, just a little bit left on the table, so it does look like it'll work. And I did get about 4 boxes of nice kindling wood for the wood stove. So now it's time to go over and just try to join her with that, shorter. Actually, it's got 5 feet of hose taken off there, and then another 8 feet of pipe taken off the other side. And I'm running the joiner now. I actually have the dust collector on the bandsaw, the 4-inch gate still open, just to see if you could run 2 tools at a time. And it's really doing a pretty good job. You can see there is a little bit of dust coming out around the edges there and around the safety guard and stuff when it first starts cutting and finishes up the cut. But basically, I'm taking quite a bit off here, and it's really doing a good job. So shortening that up, I think, did really help. Plus, it looks like I'll be able to run 2 tools as long as they're on the different sides of the 2 different loops of the dust collector. Now you can see that it's really violent in the dust collector now that once I took that elbow out and shortened it up. It's just so much more flow, and the thing's just acting so much more like a cyclone now too. So this is still kind of botched in here until I get that cyclone, which won't ship, they say, until the end of January next year. So, but there's what the joiner came out looking like after doing a couple 100 feet of ash. So that worked pretty good, and that was especially having the second gate open. Nothing really got in the air, so I was happy. And then it's time to go back and start planing everything. And basically the planer did really good. It caught everything except for just as the piece came off the infeed roller there, and started heading for the cutter. There was a couple little chips that came out the back of every piece. If you butted 2 pieces, you didn't get it, but you still do get like a couple little chips that come out once you've got that gap between the cutter head and the infeed roller open. So I got all my lumber pretty much thickness to size, and you can see there's only a couple specks of sawdust around, so that really did make a big difference there too. So I think it's gonna work. And all the lumber's ready to go now. This is gonna go upstairs and be stacked to acclimate to the wood stove in the room and stuff. But the one thing I did see is with the cyclone, this thing used to fill up almost all the way before I changed that filter around, and now it actually just sucks the sawdust right out of the cyclone. So with the higher airflow, that old trash can cyclone lid is basically useless now. But I did run about 3 bags of chips through it, and basically everything seems to work good. The filter seemed to stay a lot cleaner, and I'm looking forward now to receiving the actual cyclone unit to get mounted in line and just see what kind of a difference that makes. So everything's cleaned up, and the cyclone's going to be sitting right there in the corner. And here I have all that lumber that I just planed and cut to size, just kind of stacked next to my wood stove for a couple weeks before I start the project to let that get acclimated to the conditions up there and stuff. So anyhow, I hope this Grizzly Cyclone works out. It's a brand new product that they've got out, and I decided to try it just because I like the idea that it had a container that could use another feed up to the Cyclone, so it could use a plastic trash can liner that can actually be swapped out quick and stuff. So, I thought I'd give it a try. It was about the same price as the actual Dust Deputy XL, so I'll find out whether I made the right choice or not in a while. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.